Because of the copious historical events and facts highlighted, it appears that within the precincts of time, light is infinite and ethereal. Moreover, between the periods 1672, Isaac Newton advanced corpuscular theory, 1678, Christian Huygens advanced wave theory, 1865, James Clerk Maxwell advanced electromagnetic wave theory, and 1900, Max Planck advanced quantum theory. Now that I have established context concerning this conversation as it relates to the above, which explicitly suggests that within the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, it appears that the way of life exhibited by Newton, Huygens, Maxwell, and Planck seems to suggest that this nuance activated their intellectual passions and imaginations, simultaneously igniting them to the extent that they were inspired to investigate light. It is also purported by Narendran that Newton, Huygens, Maxwell, and Planck theories are some of the most important theories on light. Such reasoning also corroborates why light is not only present in painting and/or photography, but also deployed as a tool in science. Given the specificity and logistics of light, I have accepted the theory that from ancient Greece to the present day, scientists have been studying light to try to penetrate the mysteries of its composition and how to measure it. To put this conversation in context, as an author, cinematographer, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, podcaster, and publisher, my intellectual passions were also reignited at the thought and the power of light, since it provided illumination and enlightenment during my academic tenure at New Jersey City University in the pursuance of a Bachelor of Arts degree in Media Arts. It should be noted that the theoretical and practical knowledge that I attained during my academic tenure qualifies me to juxtapose the previous copious historical events and facts against the background of the third verse of the book of Genesis in the King James Bible. I quote, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light," end quote. Hence, deploying it as the underpinning of this discourse. In this ambience, it is noted that light and shadows is a way of life. Volume 1, ISBN 978-976-9676862 is verbalized in podcast 128, captured and framed in 14 chapters in publication 239. Narendran believes that many theories are proposed over the discovery of various effects of light. Though the light is in existence, since the existence of sun, but all the effects of light are not discovered since early 15th century AD. These theories explain how the light is and how the light transmits. In his wisdom, he also purported that some of the most important theories on light are Newton's corpuscular theory, Huygens' wave theory, Maxwell's electromagnetic wave theory, and Planck's quantum theory. Light and shadows, a way of life, is not only a theoretical construct, but a dialogue that draws our attention to the fact that it is reported that there is now an event known as International Year of Light 2015, which is a global initiative adopted by the United Nations to raise awareness of how optical technologies promote sustainability development and provide solutions to worldwide challenges in energy, education, agriculture, communications, and health. Light is the basis of human sight and reflects off of objects and enters the eye where it is channeled to the retina and perceived as colors and shapes. It is a form of electromagnetic radiation. It has a wavelength which can be seen by the human eye. It is a small part of the electromagnetic spectrum and radiation given off by stars like the sun. Animals can also see light and the study of light, known as optics. When light hits an opaque object, it makes a shadow, but when the light hits a transparent object, it passes through it almost completely without making a shadow. Light is electromagnetic radiation that shows properties of both waves and particles. Light is a form of energy that keeps the earth warm, and by the same token, it exists in tiny energy packets called photons. Each wave has a wavelength or frequency. The human eye sees each wavelength as a different color. Rainbows show the entire spectrum of visible light. The separate colors moving in from the outer edges are usually listed as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The other main properties of light are intensity, polarization, phase, and orbital angular monument. In physics, the term light sometimes refers to electromagnetic radiation of any wavelength, whether visible or not. The law of reflection is what allows us to see an object reflected in a mirror. Because of the approaches of anthropology and history to look at popular cultural traditions and cultural interpretations of historical experience, these copious historical events and facts concerning light can be interpreted as cultural history. Make no mistake, light in earliest times has stood for illumination and enlightenment because for a long time the access to light was a social privilege and was only democratized by the technical revolutions like gas and electric lighting. In this next phase, it is evident that through the researches accumulated over 2,000 years of time, the true nature of light, or namely the photon, was discovered. The photon has many mysterious physical properties such as possessing the dual properties of a wave and a particle. That said, I must confess that because of the revealing facts of these properties has led me to using light more effectively than ever before as a cinematographer and media arts specialist. A case in point. According to expert photograph, when you add another light source or reflector as a fill light, it brings balance to your exposure. Through the lens of analysis, this thinking adds value to this discourse, especially when doing street photography. We must look for situations where backlit subjects have something reflecting light onto their faces without any reflection back into the subject's face. Their skin tone would be too dark, and being too dark in some ways can subtly create impressions of film noir, which is an era associated with a low-key, black and white visual style that has roots in German expressionist cinematography. Light influences and impacts every aspect of our lives because it is also part of the linguistics culture. For example, light is a surname of the English language. Coming from Middle English, there are several possible meanings. The root words for light, luc, root, loc, comes from Latin, where it has the meaning light. This meaning is found in such words as elucidate, lucid, lucite, and pellucid. Light is a source of illumination, whether a natural one like the sun or an artificial one like your lamp. Like light itself, the word can take a lot of different forms. It can be a noun, an adjective, or a verb, and can mean bright or not heavy. A case in point, can you shed light on this problem? Generally speaking, light serves as a symbol of life, happiness, prosperity, and in a wider sense of perfect being. As a symbol of life, light can also serve as a symbol of immorality. Bible commentators such as John W. Rittenbaugh see the presence of light as a metaphor of truth, good and evil, knowledge and ignorance. In this ambience, it should be noted that a shadow is a dark area. For example, when light from a light source is blocked by an opaque object, it occupies all of the three-dimensional volume behind an object with light in front of it. The cross-section of a shadow is a two-dimensional silhouette or a reverse projection of the object blocking the light. As a photographer, I have observed that a silhouette effect is created when a light source is placed behind your subject, with little to no light in front of your subject. What is uniquely interesting, if your subject is totally backlit with the right camera settings, you'll be able to capture a gorgeous, crisp silhouette shot. Further, the shadows casted by the astronomical objects are called in three different terms: antrumbra, penumbra, and umbra. The visible shadows of astronomical objects, which can be viewed from Earth, are produced by the Moon, Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. The latter two ones will produce the shadow under the suitable conditions. The dramatic changes of shadows produced by the Sun are spotted all the day long. Through the lens of history, according to micromagnet.fsu.edu, particle or wave, it is reported that the exact nature of visible light is a mystery that has puzzled man for centuries. Optics are still available to us because they arose in Greek antiquity and are associated with names like Aristotle and Euclid. However, optics was essentially understood there as the science of seeing. Romer's determination of the speed of light was the demonstration in 1676 that light has a finite speed and so does not travel instantaneously. The theory of light being a particle completely vanished until the end of the 19th century when Albert Einstein revived it. The dual nature of light means that in some experiments, light behaves as a wave, a theory espoused by Ernest Z. In 1801, Thomas Young shined light between two adjacent slits. In a screen, show an inference pattern characteristic of waves of light rather than particles. There are three measurable properties of wave motion: amplitude, wavelength, and frequency. Hertz joined the conversation because he provided proof of the existence of airborne electromagnetic waves, which led to an explosion of experimentation with this new form of electromagnetic radiation, which was called Hertzian waves. On this timeline, it's recorded that in March 1905, Albert Einstein created the quantum theory of light. The idea that light exists as tiny packets or particles, which he called photons. The primary properties of visible light are intensity, propagation direction, frequency or wavelength, spectrum, and polarization. Consequently, there are also 7 basic properties of light: reflection of light, refraction of light, diffraction of light, interference of light, polarization of light, dispersion of light, and sunlight. In the Renaissance, light was a tool that artists used to define their subject matters, delineate them, and bring out a certain sense of realism in the picture. Their works explore the contrast between light and darkness and remain clearly defined within sharp boundaries. Photography literally means writing with light. That immediately tells you how important lighting is in photography. Understanding light is a priority in photography, and without that knowledge, you will not be able to continuously produce great photos. As it is with everything in life, where there is light, there must be shadow, because they go hand in hand. The importance of shadows in photography should not be neglected. There are also traditions associated with shadows. For example, an unattended shade was thought by some cultures to be similar to that of a ghost. In photography, which is essentially recording patterns of light, shade, and color, highlights and shadows are the brightest and darkest parts, respectively, of a scene or image. Photographic exposure must be adjusted unless special effects are wanted to allow the film or sensor, which has limited dynamic range, to record detail in the highlights without them being washed out, and in the shadows without their becoming undifferentiated black areas. In daily life as well, this observable fact plays a decisive role to light up a building or a space. Architectural lighting focuses on 3 factors: aesthetic appeal, ergonomics, and energy efficiency. There's another school of thought which imputes that there is no universally perfect light for every different subject and locale, because there are so many types of lights in photography. And therefore, it is noted that each light creates different effects, such as mood and tone can be created by natural and artificial lighting. However, when it comes to photography, the type of lighting that you select or use is one of the most important elements of any photo. Light in photography refers to how the light source, which can be natural or artificial, is positioned in relation to your subject. Artificial light is the main ingredient in a photograph. Many times when light isn't naturally available, we have to find artificial light sources. There are, of course, other ingredients: time, composition, subject matter, emotion, and your unique style. But light is the thing that makes photography work. On the other hand, light is the thing that early inventors had to hold or fix in order to make a photograph stick around. We call nature's light natural or available. Think of sunlight or moonlight. Natural light is anything that occurs without human intervention. So, it can be the direct light of the sun on a bright day, the diffuse light created by a cloudy or foggy day, or even the light of the moon at night. As a practitioner, it is important that we understand the purpose of different types of light. A case in point, ambient light is also utilized because It is a soft glow that blankets your space just enough for you to function without causing a harsh glare. In photography and cinematography, ambient light is considered the natural light within a room. A shadow is not a reflection, even though it is often the same shape as the object. The shape of the object determines the shape of the shadow. There are many sources of light: stars like our sun, candle flames, light bulbs, glow worms, and computer screens produce light. Proper cinematography lighting is fundamental to all photo shoots because it sets the mood, atmosphere, and gives the audience a sense of meaning. According to www.mpg.de, light has certainly shed light on a lot, quite literally, from remote galaxies to the internals of the cell. Then, as now, researchers applied light as a tool for their purposes. Finally, I must confess that although my premise was predicated on the fact that within the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, yet it appears that the way of life practiced by Newton, Huygens, Maxwell, and Planck explicitly implies that their intellectual passions and imaginations were excited and ignited, hence seemingly inspired them to investigate light. As an author, cinematographer, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, podcaster, and publisher, through my lens of analysis and resource research, leads me to conclude that within the precincts of time, light is infinite and ethereal. It is a key factor in creating a successful image, and it determines not only brightness and darkness, but also tone, mood, and atmosphere. At the end of an assignment, it is necessary to control and manipulate light correctly in order to get the best texture, vibrancy of color on your subjects. A good rule of thumb is find a way to use the light and shadow creatively in your photo, and when the question, what is in light and shadow, what is bright and dark, how and where the shadows fall is asked, your response is, all of these work together to communicate the mood of an image. Concludes Light and Shadows, A Way of Life, Volume 1, ISBN 978-976-9676862, is verbalized in podcast 128 and captured and framed in 14 chapters in publication 239.